I'm Michelle from Well with Michelle. I'm a certified cannabis health coach who helps people find relief from many different ailments using medical cannabis. In this series, I'll talk to patients and colleagues who have incredible health journeys with cannabis. They use cannabis as part of their treatment plan for everything from Crohn's to PTSD and chronic pain. We'll hear their stories about how medical cannabis has helped them manage their conditions and feel better than they ever have before. Thanks for watching. Hi, and welcome to Kyona. So glad to have you here for my Well with Michelle interviews, and so grateful to have you as our guest editor for the mental health issue for Effective Cannabis newsletter. It's always great to have people that we've been familiar with through the community. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kyona?
Thank you for having me, Michelle. It's such an honor to be a part of the Effective Cannabis newsletter mission. My name is Kyona. My company is Ayurveda and Ayurveda Academy. I'm a board certified Ayurvedic health counselor and yoga therapist. And I'm also an auriculotherapy practitioner. I work with vibrational sound therapy, pelvic steam facilitation, and entheogenic guidance and cannabis education. And I primarily work with women in their middle essence who are really seeking practices to help them return to their authenticity. And so I pull from all of the modalities that I practice and curate programs for them to meet their wellness goals. And my tagline for Ayurveda is self-care elevated. And I tried to find a way to kind of subtly hint to the fact that elevation involves other things like cannabis and other plant medicines. And so I try to kind of weave that into my Ayurvedic practice and make that available for the women that I work with and meet them where they are with the medicine. A lot of it is education and empowerment, and I even created a little community of my peers to really introduce them to the benefits of the cannabis plant. And talking about self-care is something that I'm really always doing, and I've often been asked why I work in this area, or what brought me to these practices. And I like to share that pretty much everything that I practice, from the auriculotherapy, which is the ear seed practice, I've gone down these rabbit holes for myself first. There was something that maybe I was dealing with or wanted to just help balance out. And so, I learned about a modality, and then I started, trying it out on myself. And then curiosity just got too much, and I needed to become certified. So I went all the way, okay, how much can I learn? And then there's this idea of, once having the information, it does no good if you don't share it. And so I really the self-care elevation, to me, it's my logo. If I turn around, you'll see it printed on the back of my shirt. Ask me how to elevate self-care. I got some ideas for you. And it's really interesting too, because while I do focus mainly on women's health, I often get their husbands interested, and sometimes the husband or the partner that starts the practice before the actual person who I think is the client. And so
wow.
Ayurveda can really be that householder's medicine, which it is. And I can explain a little more about what Ayurveda is as well, because
I would like to hear that. Every time I say the word Ayurveda, I Ayurveda.
Yeah, it's pronounced a couple different, you hear it a couple different ways, but
Most people
Ayurveda,
are like, what is that? Explain
I
that.
know, right, right. It's spelled Ayurveda, so hence Kyveda. Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word, and it's a holistic healing medicine system that's based in India. It's been practiced for over 5,000 years, and it really is householders' medicine. So it's the concepts are really simple concepts that help us to increase our awareness around our self care. It's really a lot about preventative measures and longevity practices with the knowledge and understanding that we are a microcosm of our environment. So it's, the universe is comprised of five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And we have all of those elements that make us up as well. And then there are specific body mind types that those elements and the qualities of those elements manifest uniquely in each of us. So we can be kind of grouped into different types. You might hear the words Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and those are the dosha types. And while we may predominantly express one over the other, two of those, we all have all of the elements, all of the qualities. And again, they just manifest and show up differently for us. So, what Ayurveda teaches us to do is to identify qualities and reach for the opposite quality to help promote balance. And we
Oh,
do
yeah.
that with food, herbs, lifestyle. Yoga is actually a part of Ayurveda. It's often said that they're sister sciences, where we've heard that yoga, or we may believe here in the West, that yoga is for the body. It's actually, yoga is for the mind, Ayurveda is for the body, and different practices that are done, again, to help prevent disease and promote longevity.
Wow, beautiful. There's a lot to that. It's really encompassing how with everything, right? Like we are a product of our environment, and when you're aware of your environment and work with it instead of like keep pushing against it, then you can actually get back into balance with your health and your self-care, mental,
Absolutely.
physical, spiritual, all that health together,
It's
right?
all encompassing, correct. It's all encompassing. And that's why I love Ayurveda, is because it does speak to, that multifaceted approach. It's not just our physical health. The mind has so much to do, with the state of the body, and, they work together, and they're practices that really do, speak to, all of the layers.
Yeah. I love yoga as it works with breath work and like really getting connected with your breath and your flow. And when you're in flow in yoga, you can see how that works for your mind versus just for your body. But when your body is flexible and limber and the energy can flow through you freely, it clears your head too, right?
Right, right. I've often said that in the past, when I didn't have a daily yoga practice, but I was doing yoga, but not daily. I would say that it was kind of obvious when I wasn't doing yoga because I wasn't really fun to be around. So definitely for, mood stabilization. Definitely, to your point, what you said, like that breath work can really unblock some channels that need to flow freely,
Yeah.
for everything to communicate properly and for us to show up, like I said, like I like to say, as our authentic self.
And it's interesting you say that you notice the days that you didn't practice and how differently you feel. And I find that just works really well into the next question, like how important is self-care and being there for yourself every day, being consistent and having a routine of self-care. And what does that look like?
Yes. For me, it fluctuates throughout the year because in Ayurveda, there is a practice of seasonal cleansing. So twice a year, for spring and for fall, to prepare the body, and reset the metabolism, we do a reset. So at those points in the year, like my self-care practices ramp up. But just for maintenance, there are some non-negotiable practices that I do daily, from tongue scraping, to waking at certain times, or, waking and sleeping at the same times and eating the meals at the same times, for that consistency and that strong foundation. So when I work with somebody, again, it's meeting them where they are and helping to build a sustainable routine so that it's not too overwhelming, right? Because it's just like, there's the ideal and there's the actual. It's like, ideally, you do all of these things and do your dry brushing and your abhyanga and your neti and your nausea and all of these practices, and then it's nighttime, so then you got to go to bed, like if you were doing every single thing. So, the practical is like, where can you fit in some of these practices for, consistency? And for me, while, I practice these for myself, and my business is also guiding people and showing up for them to help them through theirs, there's that piece of accountability, whereas can't really fake it. Have to do the things, and it's a beautiful reciprocation. I feel like, a lot of times, and even like, especially in the cleansing seasons, like, I'll invite my clients and, my tribe, like, let's do a group cleanse. I'm going to be doing this, so if you want to jump on board, you can see what it looks like. So, I try to make myself available for that. But yeah, it could look different, again, for different people. And I never want to overwhelm someone with too much, but definitely encourage and be that example for them, to move forward and have that consistency.
So tell me a little more about, there's a few different things that you do in there. So tongue scraping, maybe I'd like to hear a little more about that. You talked about pelvic steaming, which sounds interesting too. And then
Sure. Yeah, the tongue scraping practice. So the tongue is one of the ways that we can kind of diagnose if we have any type of toxicity in the system. So it's kind of a daily practice for, those following Ayurvedic lifestyle, where you would just like look at the coating of your tongue. But the first thing in the morning, what you would do is scrape your tongue, and you notice. Ayurveda is a lot about noticing. You're noticing the color, the texture, what kind of gunk is coming off of the tongue, and that can kind of give you an indication if you've got any toxicity, or a word that we use is ama in the system. And Ayurveda believes that the digestive tract is the master system of the body, and if the digestive system is operating optimally, then we can prevent disease. And so, those types of practices, and eating seasonally, eating for your specific type, and doing these digestive resets throughout the year, are some of the practices that will help maintain that balance. But even making sure that you're hydrated properly before having your meal, making sure that you're not introducing any cold beverages or foods that will dampen your digestive fire, and even including spices, not only in your food that you cook, but taking spices, digestive formulas, culinary spices or herbs before a meal, or maybe during or after a meal, are appropriate at times to help with the digestion, assimilation, and absorption.
That's why I like pepper and like turmeric and all those things. Are always saying that they're really good for digestion and fat loss and metabolism.
Yeah, we're always working to get the optimum, like, again, resetting during the spring and the fall, like preparing for the spring metabolism. Like, if, say, the weather's crazy everywhere, right? But if you wore the same clothes all throughout the year, it wouldn't be appropriate. Like, I wouldn't be rocking this black thick hoodie in June, most likely not in Southern California. So the same way, like, you want to eat different foods and switch up your seasonal spices to really help to optimize the digestion. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Okay, so
interesting. I
that, but the
haven't really
tongue
heard of.
scraping, yeah, like tongue scraping could be an individual. Let's just say tongue diagnose or tongue observation, right? If you're looking at your tongue and you've got scallops on the side of the tongue, that can be an indicator of malabsorption. If you're looking at the tongue and there's like a lot of dry, a lot of cracks or deep cracks, that can be a sign of dehydration. Um, Depending on where it is on the tongue, it can give you a little more. That could also be a sign of back pain if it's like in the center. There's a lot you can tell: color,
Ah,
texture, indentations. Um, Movement of the tongue can indicate nervous system imbalance if there's like quivering of the tongue. But again, that scraping is said to give an indicator of any type of ama toxicity in the system. But
yeah.
also the tongue will it's like a map of the organs of the system. So doing this scraping of the tongue is also stimulating and kind of massaging those internal organs. So like I also mentioned that auriculotherapy, the ear seeds.
Yeah.
Most of us have heard, if you've heard of it, maybe you associate it with traditional Chinese medicine, because a lot of acupuncturists will do needles on acupoints in the ear. The ear seeds are less invasive, where they're just pellets that are placed on the ear and held in place with surgical tape, where you can press on them to still activate. Where the ear is a microsystem of the body. So there's over 200 points that
Ah,
correlate to the body through nerve endings. And interestingly enough, auriculotherapy has originated in India. So it was a practice that was done in India, traveled from India to China, and then became an established practice for traditional Chinese medicine, so TCM. And that's how now we're hearing of it more. And there's also a doctor named Dr. Paul Nogier. He's a French doctor who really is thought to be kind of the grandfather of auriculotherapy. And he has created an auricular anatomy chart that resembles an upside down fetus on the ear that can give you, an idea of what regions you're treating.
oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so there's a little bit of a French influence in there as well, but the practice definitely originated in India. So part of Ayurveda as well.
I
Yeah.
love that the world is so small now that we can really embrace so many different cultures and the benefits that those different cultural teachings and traditions have, and we can really adopt all of these into our own healthcare.
Ancient wisdom for modern times.
Yeah.
That was the name of one of my presentations years ago when I was trying to, really bring some of these topics to the forefront. But yeah, we're hearing now a lot more about Ayurveda. You'll see a lot more about auriculotherapy or ear seeds. Like these are definitely they've been used for a long time and are definitely proven. And
Right.
scientific studies coming out now, like telling us what we've already known for years. But we're like, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have the science
I
backing
love
up
it. I
what
love it.
people were doing for so long, saying like, yeah, it's not just fluff, or
Right. Right.
somebody was trying something and it's a bunch of hooey. But now they got the science to back it up, and now it brings it back full force. Like, yeah, these people knew what they were doing because they could feel it. They were listening to their body, right? And they can feel it
Traction.
inside. They don't need somebody to tell them it was working because you can feel it.
Absolutely.
um So then tying all of these different modalities together, and sound healing and the pelvic steaming, which you're still going to get into for me, it's important when you start cultivating that awareness of where you are and how to target your different body systems to allow more flow and more energy through it. How important is that to our mental health?
Yes. Um, I've been asked that question a lot, mainly during the pandemic.
Mm,
And yes. And a lot of times when people would want to talk about, yeah, this health piece, the self-care piece, I was always bringing it back to mental health,
yeah.
because I believe that is the foundation. If you are not doing self-care practices, and this is a question that is on, I'm a form-oriented person, so every client that I've worked with, sometimes they don't like it, but I have them fill out forms before and after a session. And I'm always asking, how have your self-care practices helped with your mental health?
Mm.
And at the beginning of the pandemic, I had a, and I said due to the pandemic, but it was like, that's not even necessary. We're just period.
Yeah.
How have they helped? And I get this answer, 99% of the time is that like they wouldn't be able to it's like that is how they've gotten through this time, is
Right.
because of their self-care practices. So this was confirmation for me that like I'm doing the good work. So for me personally, again, like I said, if I wasn't doing yoga, it was evident. I knew that I wasn't like the most fun person to be around. So for me, I think it really does bolster, our entire system when we're working within,
Yeah.
and especially for those of us who serve others. If I am not doing my self-care work, then I am not
Sure.
going to be helpful.
Yeah.
And even if that, like, I can't fake it, but even if I try to, I know that that would, leave residue on me.
Right.
So, it's another reason to really just, up level my game. So, they go hand in hand to me, self-care, mental health, that you can't take them apart from each other.
Right.
There's a respect piece in there. There's a love piece in there. Self-care equals self-love equals self-respect equals mental health.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
feel a lot of people also miss the part of self-compassion in their self-care and
definitely,
being able to love yourself first, right? Sometimes that's what they need to develop, is the love for themselves, to be able to show up for the self-care and not feel guilt, to be
taking
looking
the time.
after themselves, looking after their mental health, taking quiet time to rebuild um and to sustain a regular daily habit. So having that self-compassion piece first, is saying I am worthy of this self-care every day, and to not feel that guilt.
Right.
And that was a big part for me too, like looking after everybody else in my life first, right? And not even thinking that that was pulling me down. You would think that, that caring for others should lift you up, make you feel good, but when you're not caring for yourself first, it's kind of counterproductive, and you need to be able to do both, right? Look after yourself and
It's
others.
cliche, but it like illustrates it so clearly about, putting your mask on first
Right?
before.
Right?
It's like that is the most perfect idiom. But I strongly believe in that. And, giving yourself permission. And I don't have children that I've birthed. And so I do know that I probably have more time than most, to do this work. So, I see that as, I'm grateful for that I'm able to, and be an example, and try to guide others through it. But absolutely, what you said, just that releasing the guilt, and that's often what I am trying to bring forth in people when I'm working with them, is trying to you know peel back, like, where's the resistance to doing this, to showing up for yourself, and going down those little rabbit holes to you know get them to the place where they understand. That's what these tools are for. So you mentioned the pelvic steaming, right, and the vibrational sound therapy, um, and these are all ways to tune in. I've talked about using the pelvic steaming, even if there's not necessarily an issue that you're trying to balance, but just using that practice as a self-care moment.
Okay.
And, bringing in a cup of tea and a journal and leaving your phone somewhere else for 10, 15 minutes. But like, even if there's no, reproductive issues, or, pelvic steaming a lot of times is used to help restore gynecological issues, or rebalance menstrual cycles, or even used for fertility enhancement or post-surgery recovery. And so, there are those things, but there's also, like I say, just the act of self-care and self-love and reconnection, I can't even say it, reconnecting, with the body, having a moment to really kind of go inward. And yeah, so it's a beautiful practice. I was introduced to it through a Korean spa years ago, and after studying and becoming certified, I realized that experience was all wrong. There was no intake done. Everybody was kind of treated the same, and used you were sitting over a heated kind of like a hot plate, but a pot of herbs,
Okay.
simmering herbs, and you're sitting over that. And this actual setup, I believe, I'm trying to remember if it was, I don't remember what the seat was. It could have either been a wooden box, or it could have been an actual, seat. Anyway, I remember just going like, wow, this is hot. And I remember like checking, like, should it be this hot? and even turn it down, because like I knew you could see where the dial was on, and I was like, yeah. And I remember just kind of like leaning and letting a lot of air around, and then, fast forward to after learning really about it, and even just applying Ayurvedic principles. If we know that you've got a lot of heat in your constitution, that's not really something that you want to add more to, because you're going to throw it off balance, right? Okay. So what I learned was that I fall into a category that shouldn't be using any heating element. I should be, and a lot of other of my clients, just sitting over the heated herbs, and and it cools off eventually. Like it's not necessary to have a heated element for some people. The practice is customized, and the herb selection and the actual protocol is a customized process, and it's not only for women. That's the part I wanted to get to. So you'll hear it referred to as vaginal steaming and pelvic steaming, or peri steaming. So I haven't worked with any men in the practice, but calling it pelvic steaming is more inclusive. And it is definitely a practice that all genders can experience.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, so we've got all of these different modalities and all these different ways to apply self-care. And we're going to also bring in cannabis. And at what point did you bring cannabis into your self-care routine, and how? Like, what do you use and what do you do?
Yes. So it's a long span of time, a long story that I will try to speak concisely about. My introduction to cannabis was more from a recreational standpoint in my youth, high school days, and then in my 20s, still recreational, but then started to learn about making medibles. So I was the one who all of my friends would come to for that. And it was, I realized like, oh, I'm good at this. Like, this is a way of me to express my creativity. Packaging was on point, had a lot of fun with it, made chocolates, made drinks, and really enjoyed that. Just crafted different creations, and it was just like, that was my thing. Well, that lasted for years. But I I wanted to learn more, and I was pretty self-taught through books early on. So I mean, I'm talking like 20 years of this.
Okay.
And so eventually I stumble upon the Wake and Bake podcast, or not podcast, the blog,
Okay.
Corinne Dubois' Wake and Bake blog.
In her masterclass.
Yes, I was all in. I was like, this is my people. Like this is language. And in 2016, I enrolled in the Holistic Cannabis Academy. So I went through that program and still wanted more. I was like, okay, I was just hungry for the knowledge. And that's probably around when I started to use cannabis more intentionally. And there's some parts that I know I'm leaving out, because even before that, early 2000s, had a medical card and was a caregiver for a family member, extended family member. So there was that knowledge of the medical, cannabis industry. But I didn't ever really want to be reliant on dispensaries, and it was just always a little shady.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even to the point that I was unfortunately involved in an armed robbery at a dispensary, and very traumatizing event. And yeah, so aside from that, and because of that, aside from that, and because of that, I would say that it made me even more interested in how to use cannabis, intentionally.
Right.
And so my creations have gone through this process, or this transformation from more of a recreational product to now more of a customized formulation. And I've been like immersed for the last few years in continuing education through Dr. Sulak's, the Healer program, and his monthly webinars. And Tammy Sweet I've been a student of hers for years. Her grow courses, her medicine making courses. I stay enrolled every year. I'm like, yes, I'll take it again, and I'll take it again. And then our lovely Michelle Crawford, certified cannabis coach. I always like to give people their props. I've taken her homemade health course, every time she offers it, because I'm always interested in how to elevate my medicine making game, and I want to learn little nuances, from people. And so my regimen is, as needed. In the mornings, I will typically take a tincture with a few cannabinoids in it. So it'll be CBDA, CBD, and THC. And then as needed through the day, I use my vaporizer, and most likely there will be a blend of cannabinoids in that as well.
Right.
And it'll either be THC and CBD or THC and CBG. Right. Depending on what I need. Like if I'm going to do my workout, my TRX, I might lean toward the CBD more, just if I've got any kind of achiness or just want to be inspired to do it, right? For motivation purposes, fun, right? And then I'll also use a homemade formulation, a multi-cannabinoid, either infusion or tincture, depending on how I make it, but it'll have more of the cannabinoids. So all of the acids, the CBG, CBD, and THC acids, and then I'll add in CBG and THC in that formulation. And that's something that, I'll take if I need to chill out and just be social. And, I'm an old school. I love a joint. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I roll a good. So I will often have some CBD in my THC joints, and other botanicals as well. I grow some wild daga and some lavender. So sometimes I'm going in my garden, I'll dry out my flowers and I'll add that to my tinctures as well. I just made a tincture an infusion this week, and I added in some lavender flowers, and it's lovely. I had some
Nice.
earlier the week. Yesterday I think was the first time, or 2 days ago, I tried it. I was like, that's got a nice little aftertaste there of lavender. So that's my basic routine. I'm not really big on edibles. And for happy hour, I'll often choose my formula over a glass of any alcoholic beverage. I'm kind of like, I know what I can enjoy more with
Right.
less side effects. It's like I don't like a hangover. I've
Yeah.
realized over the years that
The extra calories, the extra
it's like
reactions. I get reactions.
I have to wait. It's like it's a obvious, like
Yeah.
it's such an obvious decision. Yeah. So, and I'm always trying to impart that on other folks too. I'm like, well, if you want to be able to really enjoy yourself and not suffer, because I'm all about like, how do you, act now to prevent future suffering? That's
Right.
another Ayurvedic kind of mindset. Yeah. So.
Well, that's why I totally believe in smoking a joint too, because that in itself is medicine. And whether that, whether you're doing that every day, all day, it might take a little different turn in your cannabis wellness or prevention, but smoking a joint helps you to just relax and to just shut down that hamster wheel that's just going.
Conscious cannabis consumption it's like if you are like we said about the alcohol, if you're making that decision to choose this over that, and putting that intention behind it, it means everything. But
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, and we talked about the cleansing earlier. I took so this past spring when I did my cleanse, so just a couple months ago, a month or so ago, I chose to take an extended tolerance break. And that was really interesting. That was for the whole time. And when I enter into my cleanse phase, I'm usually very clear about the fact that the right cannabinoids are going to help support me through this process.
Right.
Because it's not about getting high. It's about supporting the nervous system and mental health, right? So this time, my choice to abstain from everything, even my tinctures, was very intentional. And it was, I observed a lot, and I noticed how I was agitated at times, and I was never tempted to reach for it, but it was very insightful just to notice. It was very insightful. Yeah.
That is nice and noticeable. People always worry about being addicted to cannabis, and it's a very different kind of medicine in that way, where you can use it every day and notice the benefits of it every day and want to use it, but you can let it go and not feel like, oh my God, if I don't take it today, I'm gonna die.
It could be habitual, but if it's done intentionally, so there's that piece to it. What I note for myself also when I'm coming back, or when I know that say if I've gotten a little too regular with just smoking the joint, then I check myself and I go to the cleaner option, because I'm always about like this part of this self-care elevated is all about what is the healthiest option.
Right.
Like, again, meeting people where they are. So it's like you can't have people take everything out of like what. So the healthier option then would be to vaporize.
Right.
So that's how I clean it up. Where it's like, okay, I'm not going to introduce the paper. I'll give the lungs a break. I'll go to my vaporizer. Okay, and then how do I give my lungs a bigger break? Then I just go to the tincture and leave the inhalations alone, and then work
And
in
kind of
that.
cycle through all that again, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I kind of do the same thing. I like the term medibles.
Yeah, that was so fun. I had the name game was so fun. Like my chocolates were called Kynamite, not Kynamite, and then I had Relixir was my elixir because it was like about using responsibly. Like I even had this logo. I created this whole seal about that the message was always about responsible use because I
Right.
cannot tell you how many times I would get a page because this is how long I would get a page on my pager not 911 and I'm like, you did not listen to how much I said to eat, did you? You ate the whole thing, didn't you? So like that used to really just wear on me, and now we laugh about it because I have friends who we talk about it to this day. They're like, I've seen every iteration of your cannabis creations, and they just like they're always excited, like, what do you got now? So we're going for minimum effective dose. You
Right.
don't, they're like, huh? Trust me, like follow me down this road and we will get somewhere. Yeah. So it's been so fun to be the guide.
Yeah. I like to liken it to where people say like, a glass of wine with dinner every night is good for you, is healthy, right? It's got its own things in wine that are preventative and stuff like that.
The
But if you
right
were
one.
to drink a Mickey of vodka every day, or you know, drinking, a half a bottle of scotch every night, then
Those don't have resveratrol in them, just your red wine, not
exactly. And that's so different to your health. Like now it's a detriment to your health. And it's the same with cannabis, right? Like there are benefits in the lower doses, and there are benefits in regular use. But when you start abusing it in other ways, then it can still be damaging to yourself. So you still need to be intentional. You still need to know how your body is responding, and at what point you need a tolerance break, and then bring back those beneficial feelings again, instead of building your tolerance level up so high that now you need more and more and more to get the same effect.
stronger, or you need it to be infused with an, yeah, no, let's
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
So we've covered a lot. What brought you to cannabis, how you incorporate your cannabis into your daily life. We've talked about Ayurveda and how important self-care is. Is there anything else you would like to add to self-care and how important it is to mental health, for a mental health issue, or anything else you'd like to just tie up in there?
Yeah, I think it's important to start somewhere. And because I say that, I know folks can be overwhelmed with the idea of adding in something else to their routine,
Okay.
like, oh, and I got it, like it's a, a chore or a task. But, just really enforcing that, even becoming more aware of the breath and where the breath is moving in the body, the quality of the breath, noticing the inhale versus the exhale, the length of it. And I'm saying notice because none of that requires changing anything.
Right.
So elevating awareness is, I think, the first step. And I just try to get people, just start somewhere. And the breath to me is an easy start because it's happening autonomically.
Yeah.
We're making it happen. So like, let's just pay attention to it. And then once you pay attention to it, it can provide a lot of information. And then you can begin to work with it.
Yeah.
But starting somewhere, I think, is the best message that I can put forward right now.
Absolutely. It's so important. Yeah, just knowing where you're starting, having a baseline. This is who I am today, and accepting it without judgment. Just this is my starting point. And from there, then you can make your improvements. And then knowing your environment. What is the food I'm putting in my body? How am I moving? What is the energy around me? Are people lifting me up, or are they bringing me down? And how can I change that? And is it, my energy I need to raise to be able to, you know, get everybody else to feel better about themselves as well, right? So a lot of that is all really responsible for our mental health and being able to look after ourselves in a way that we can be our true authentic selves.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think really just reinforcing the awareness piece is big.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. You've been so great. I've learned a lot through your different modalities that you teach. I love that, every time you learn something new, you got to get certified in it. I totally feel that.
One of my, it's a problem, I know. I hope others benefit from it. Again, not
Yeah,
keeping it to myself and sharing it with others is my mission. So
yeah,
yeah, thank you
for
for
sure.
having me, letting me share. Appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you so much. And